Hiya Hinsters, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, welcome too. I hope you're keeping safe and well, and this is going to be the second part of my spiritual bypassing series. If you are new, do consider subscribing to my channel if you like what I do, and please give this video a thumbs up if you sincerely enjoy it. Before we get into it, just a few things. So first of all, go watch the first part of this series on Marin Altman if you haven't already, to get an idea of the aim of this series that I'm calling Spiritual Bypassing. As I said in that part, spiritual bypassing isn't my original term, but I will include now one possible definition for us, which defines spiritual bypassing as, and I quote, a tendency to use spiritual ideas and practices to sidestep or avoid facing unresolved emotional issues, psychological wounds, and unfinished developmental tasks. I'll also put up on the screen for you now a quick summary of the topics covered in the first part, because I know the audio in that stream was a bit choppy. Again, I apologize for that if it affected your ability to catch everything that I was saying. And the final little housekeeping thing to note is that if you're going to listen to my videos but then make a comment that suggests that I didn't cover something, which I already did, and your comment is just out of order, bang out of order, then your comment will most likely just be deleted. So please don't waste your time. And also, my channel is not a debate channel, though obviously people can discuss in the comments so long as you're all being considerate and respectful. And YouTube literally has guidelines for community commenting, so I'll put that in the description too, if it's helpful for you. Let me just adjust this a little bit. So today I'm going to talk a bit about someone named Deborah Houlding. Deborah Houlding, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. So Deborah Houlding is a white female astrologer who, according to Wikipedia, is, and I quote, an author, researcher, educator, and publisher who specializes in astrology. Deborah is perhaps best known, I think, for publishing the book titled The Houses, Temples of the Sky, which was published in 1996. And this is a work that I actually referenced in my Moon Through the Houses stream series here on YouTube back in September 2020. And I am going to be redoing that Moon series because I don't want to be associated with this individual due to what has transpired around the same time that the Marin Altman incident occurred. And you can watch part 1 if you want more information on the Marin Altman incident, which includes in the description of that video links to Marin's own channel and Marin's own apology/explanation videos, so you can see everything for yourself. And as I mentioned in the last part on Marin, and as I will repeat here in this Deborah Houlding part, my purpose here is not to create some sort of hate train or to have Deborah Houlding cancelled or anything like that, but it is to contribute to the minority of people making an effort to hold Deborah accountable within the astrological community. I'll also repeat that I'm not trying to tell you what to do, and I encourage you to obviously look into this yourself. Okay, so what happened? Well, around the time of Marin Altman's Twitter announcement on the apology video on YouTube, which is also summarized by Marin in a Twitter thread, there was obviously a huge number of responses within the astrological community. These responses were very varied. Watch part 1 if you've got like no idea what I'm going on about. But among these responses were, yes, some outright awful abusive statements directed at Marin, which, while being somewhat inevitable because this is the internet, it's still abusive and tends to put the emotional way above the thoughtful. So while this was going on, Deborah Houlding made a public tweet, which I'll read and show for you now on the screen. I quote, "Don't know her personally / her stuff is not really my thing, but I'm following Marin Altman today to show support for a 22-year-old who has had a hellish few days, and as thousands of followers cancelled or cast hostility towards her. We all trip up, let's be willing to catch each other." End of tweet. Make of that tweet what you will, but when I first saw this, I was quite confused as to why we would publicly support and pledge to follow someone we don't know that much about, most especially when in that moment they've been accused of plagiarism, of making fun of non-binary people, and of quite a few other problematic things. Whatever we might make of this, it wasn't long until another astrologer who goes by the name on Twitter as Blaze Maximus and uses the handle on Twitter Astro by Max, tweeted and started a thread on February 5th, 2021, which contained an email exposing Deborah Houlding as someone who, it's alleged, threatened Blaze Maximus when he requested a refund for his studies at the STA, or the School of Traditional Astrology, a school founded by Deborah Houlding. So this wasn't a simple dispute, by the way, over whether or not a student could get their refund, but it came out of allegations that this school was being racist towards people of color in its own classrooms, in its own teaching. This is important because in the released email, Deborah Houlding uses the accusations of racism as a justification to potentially deny Blaze Maximus this refund. This is despite the fact that Blaze Maximus had, and I quote, been sleeping on a couch and in need of finances. I also believe he is, or he was, 19 years old at the time. I won't show the email here, but again, if you're interested, I encourage you to go and look into this yourself. But yeah, I read the email, and while at the end, Deborah allows him the refund, throughout the email it is of this threatening tone of someone reminding the student that they could also easily withhold the student's money if they wanted to, which to me is a kind of like sick benevolence sort of thing. This then connects even more to the Maren Altman incident, because both of these individuals are white people of quite considerable influence in the astrological community who are not accounting for their roles in allowing their spiritual practices to allegedly discriminate against people of color within that same community. More recently, after I made part 1 of this series, Maren Altman proceeded to release another statement and video announcing that she will be putting together a legal team and suing her accusers. So we see how white people can quite readily weaponize their influence and material profit off the back of astrology. As the astrologer The Divine Venus recently also tweeted, this kind of weaponizing of your capital, and I'm not quoting The Divine Venus's tweet here directly, I'm just paraphrasing, but this weaponizing of capital is devastating for the accuser, who may well have the right to accuse, but not the financial means to defend themselves against such a move. Anyway, instead of resolving these accusations through dialogue and community-conscious methods, some white people, are choosing to threaten the community through this material power. I'm quite disappointed by this because most astrologers, as a practicing astrologer myself, who has clients and does readings, at least some of your clients, they're going to be people in spaces of complete devastation, you know, spaces of huge loss, spaces of desperation. There's a whole ethics, there's a whole responsibility to your practice. And so I'm pretty 99% sure that these white women are aware of the real impact that things like financial and material disadvantage has on individuals, and the vulnerability of it all. Not to mention the worsening of things if you then choose, or someone then chooses to deliberately increase those disadvantages by suing that person when you're aware of their original condition. It isn't fair, and it's an abuse of power that I hope, Maren and Deborah, you don't have to pay too heavily for down the line. You know, Maren is pretty much a self-made and younger astrologer, and Deborah is kind of the more classically established, book-published, older astrologer. And both of them have significant influence, though, within the astrological community, and therefore they have a greater responsibility for their impact, the impact of their actions on the individual, the much lesser known astrologer and the student of astrology. So I really feel, anyway, I guess to kind of approach the end of this video, it's going to be much shorter than the first part, by the way, but I feel that this Aquarius season and then more broadly in this Aquarius age, and also considering this current Mercury retrograde in Aquarius, this has made a lot of things come out at this time of this nature. And often astrologers tell us to watch what we say during a Mercury retrograde. But Aquarian energy is very contradictory, very ready or not, and very keen on pushing out truthful information no matter what the cost. So we have here, I think, the pushing out of threats made against people of color astrologers and students amidst the same parallel moments of like public and kind of egoic announcements and apologies, which I guess the powerful people thought would be clever, but which backfired quite a bit. So I feel we can take this moment to continue to do it in greater numbers, expose some elements of old school astrology. You know, in this age of Aquarius, are we perhaps putting too much value and like benefit of the doubtery on those who are like published and popular? While being spiritual practitioners, what conscious efforts are we also taking to help decolonize the effects of colonialism and whiteness within the astrological community? What are we doing to help decolonize astrology? I think, I feel that we are working towards, on many different levels, an overhaul of the traditional disseminations of astrological data and of its teachers. And you know, I remember once seeing a white man at an astrology conference, and he was expressing his anger at astrology Instagram accounts and astrology memes, and that they were not worth the time of day, yet that somehow they also bothered him enough to rant about it at that astrology conference. Well, you know, as I keep saying on my channel, astrology is for everyone. Astrology is for everyone. And not everyone is going to want to. Or even if they want to, not everyone might be able to attend astrology conferences or schools or pay for expensive tuition or buy thick books published by white people. There's just as much value in the sharing and the teaching about astrology via social media like YouTube, Twitter, which is actually far faster, far more far-reaching, and arguably better because we're using much more of our intuition. Lots and lots of different individuals are just using their intuition and their creativity to encapsulate the essences of, for example, zodiac signs without having to rely on some ordained teacher's approval or some certificate or some classical astrological technique. You know, this is because astrology is really just a language, I feel, of reading the stars or of the cosmos or of energy. It's you know, energy workers can use astrology as a tool as well. And we're all just intuitive beings, and we are all capable of encapsulating our experiences even without expensive astrological programs or a following of 1,000 fans or more. But at the same time, I'm not suggesting that the internet isn't ever wrong or problematic, or that some of these accounts don't produce toxic stereotypes. Of course they do. These people do exist within the astrological communities. I'm just trying to suggest that it's a whole new dynamic that some of us are not really ready for. This dynamic connects us like never before. It basically does away, I mean, we've always been connected, but it puts things out there, it disseminates like never before. And like I've been saying, it's a ready or not type of energy. And it basically tends to do away with the gatekeepers and the need to be rich or the need to educate yourself in some formal capacity. And that can be very scary, you know, for the righteous people and the materially and intellectually powerful. Right now we are experiencing, I think, a challenge to those who possess spiritual capital. That's what I'm going to call it, spiritual capital, which is just as dangerous as other types of capital like material capital, because it allots them power, influence, and authority on matters of spirit and spirituality, allowing them then to abuse others and to weaponize their spiritual clout when it's convenient for them, when they feel fit. But anyway, I think I've said enough. I'll end this part here, and yeah, let us know in the comments your take on this, keeping in mind your conduct, please, and that this is not a debate channel. I'm sure you can go and debate this in other areas, right? And that's fine in those other areas, but please keep that in mind. And yeah, I'll see you beautiful Hinsters in the next video. Stay safe and well. Take care. Mwah.